Good evening. My name is Henry Sylvester. In the news recently, in documentaries, during radio discussions, we have heard evidence of the heinous acts committed by the Islamic State, ISIS, the terrorist organization. They have based themselves in many Middle Eastern countries now, including Syria and Iraq, and are committing terrible acts of violence, monstrous acts of violence, including the beheadings of our own aid workers and journalists, and then posting them on social media sites. Only recently we saw the end of the trial of the two Muslim men who had been arrested for the murder of the Brigadier Lee Rigby in Woolwich in London a few years ago. And only a few months ago we saw the arrest of two Muslim men during their Remembrance Sunday services at the Centre Path in London for plotting to kill Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. This shows how far this organisation has come and how successful they are at spreading their values, their messages. And this is, of course, through social media sites. They're communicating with our own people. And this is how dangerous they are as an organisation. This is why they're such a threat to the United Nations. In my opinion, they are the biggest threat to the United Nations. This is what they should be concentrating and bringing all their power towards. Because the two Muslim men that committed the murder of Lee Rigby, they hadn't come from abroad. They were already living in London, which shows that they had been radicalised by the Islamic State. This organisation has embedded itself in our schools, in our prisons, and are encouraging our own people to go over to the Middle East and fight for their cause. This dangerous cause, this violent cause, this, quite frankly, terrifying cause. So, how do we stop it? How do we solve this problem? Well, to stop people from going across in the first place, we have to educate our people. We have to remind them of the values that they should follow, not forcing it upon them, but reminding them of what is the right way to go. So we must encourage schools, perhaps to have further PSHE classes, not just in the UK, but across the spectrum, across the world. And if people are going over to Syria and have been there already in other countries like Iraq as well, then we have to stop them from coming back. We cannot have further jihadist fighters coming back into their countries of origin after they have been fighting for the Islamic State. This is dangerous, and it poses a threat to our people. The people already living in fear back in their countries, they're scared of this terrorist organisation. They are terrified. We can't have people coming over further and committing more heinous acts. We have to have stricter border controls under United Nations regulations, and perhaps when they reach the borders, we should test these people. We should see what their mindset is. We should see what values they still believe in. We need to test them. And if they show signs of radicalist views, then don't let them in. Keep them there. We don't want them in our country if they're posing a threat to our people. And if they are successful at crossing the border, and they do pose a threat, then we must arrest them. We must detain them, keep them in prison, and then send them on trial under United Nations regulations and keep them imprisoned. Otherwise, they could possibly commit further heinous and monstrous acts against our people. And I don't think bombing the countries of which the Islamic State occupy is the way forward. I think that's just going to anger them and encourage them to commit further acts. We perhaps need to embed our own operatives in their countries, using the CIA, the KGB, MI6, using our operatives placing them in these countries and asking them to learn about how these terrorists, what they're planning, what they're doing, and their basic way of life, really, to learn more about them. Because I think the problem is that we don't know enough about them. We don't know enough of what they're doing. So yes, finding more about how they live their lives, I think, is fundamental, in actual fact. And I think, in terms of education, that is the most important of all the solutions. And I think we must do this quickly, because otherwise it's going to be too late. Thank you.